Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Noring, I think everyone was touched by your story and your bravery for coming forward. I've been honored to get to know you, and I want to thank you for everything that you've done. As you said, all the hopes and dreams we as parents had for Devin were erased in the blink of an eye, and no mom should have to bury their kid. Those were your words, and I know the words of all of your friends there that stand there to support you and have had their own pain. All he did was buy a pill off Snapchat. He thought it was a Percocet. You were there for that testimony with the tech executives, and there's a bunch of us here that have had some, battle wounds going after them when we just want to put some sensible rules in place or get rid of this legal protections that they have that other companies do not have, as you so well pointed out, but no wounds compared to what you have. You heard their testimony back then in January 2024. Do you think the social media companies are doing enough to stop the sale of drugs to kids online?
I do not think that they are doing enough. In fact, it's still continuing. I was introduced to 2 new families just last week from Minnesota, both with ties to fentanyl, with their children passing. So no, they're not doing enough. They could be doing more. I was just informed that Evan Spiegel is in support of the Cooper Davis and Devin Noring Act, and I must ask then, if you are in such support of it, all these companies are in support of the Kids Online Safety Act, why aren't they implementing those features and doing the job now? Why do we have to come before Congress and have you make them do that?
Good point. Thank you. Mr. Puerta, do you think we should get rid of or reform Section 230 in some way just to make this very clear?
Absolutely, Senator Klobuchar. In 1996, as we all know, this legislative body came up with the Section 230C of the Communications Decency Act, and what it was meant to do was to protect free speech. But what's happening right now is cannot be free speech when you have a drug dealer selling illicit fentanyl to unsuspecting children. That's not free speech. Or a grown man sending unwarranted pictures to young ladies. Sexual exploitation. This is not free speech. This is criminal behavior. And like Ms. Noring said, if it's a criminal act in the real world, then it should be as well in the social media world.
So you're looking for that reform, which also I appreciate you bringing up. Senator Cruz and I have this Take It Down Act. There's a number of other bills involving pornography as well. Sheriff Barnes, do you agree that we should, thank you for your testimony and being here, funding as we look into this next year, funding for law enforcement, do you think that that is important to take on this fentanyl crisis as well as the HIDA program that helps your deputies get fentanyl off the streets?
Senator, yes, thank you for that question. The HIDA funding has been stagnant, stale for the last 10 years. It hasn't grown. If you look at the time value of money, it's about 1/3 reduction over the last 10 years, and our costs have gone up, so it's about 50 cents on the dollar. It's not a fully funded program. My HIDA program is funded at about 1/6 of the costs that we put into it, and mostly it's subsidized through my investment of stabilizing that as other municipal agencies have withdrawn personnel. So yes, I think at the nation's worst time in history, we have to reinvest those monies. We have to look at the use of those monies, and I think we have to look at what I call a super HIDA. The original intent of the gateway HIDA is to invest on the greatest offense, which is our border HIDAs, and stop as much of the drugs as we can at the border before they make it into the continent of the United States.
Thank you. Dr. Westlake, why does class-wide scheduling reduce the incentives for drug cartels to create new fentanyl variants?
So the incentives were there before because when they initially created these under the normal Controlled Substances Act, they were legal, so you could modify it. Instead of putting an ethyl group in, you could put a methyl group in. It's a legal substance. I was on the Controlled Substance Board in Wisconsin in 2015. We had 9 different fentanyl variants, fentanyl-related substances that were killing people. We could schedule them immediately. And then they were illegal. And when you schedule them and make them illegal, there's no incentive for them to be created anymore. And there's a cookbook of changes that you can do easily, look up the research to find what different chemicals to use. So it literally just stops the incentive. It doesn't stop illicit fentanyl incentive, but it closes the spigot of fentanyl-related substances.
Thank you. One last point, Ms. Noring, and we'll talk more in this committee. I am so pleased that Senator Grassley and Durbin will lead this together on some of the social media issues. They go way beyond the ones we've talked about now. But you've also embarked on an education campaign along with a lot of our sheriffs in Minnesota that I think has been pretty effective, going back in the schools with one pill can kill. 10 seconds on that, and I'm out of time.
We have to do it because nobody else is doing it. It falls back on us. If we sit by and say nothing, children continue to die. So we feel it's our obligation to get out there, educate our community and the children, because as Ranking Chip mentioned, the conversation really begins at home. It really has to begin at home.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Lee,